The Dark Path, Through Ash and Shadow. The world shuddered when the sky split open. A crack like a wound of black glass tore through the clouds, and from it poured darkness, thick, alive, like a swarm of ravenous locusts. It didn't fall, it crawled, embracing the earth, seeping into the soil, the trees, and the bones of those unfortunate enough to stand beneath its gaze. This was the day the gods fell silent. No prayers, no sacrifices, no screams could rouse them. The world was left alone with the shadow. In a valley where silver rivers once flowed and forests whispered ancient tales, silence now reigned. Only ash danced on the wind, and the air reeked of iron and decay. In the midst of this desolate land stood a man. His name was Aidan. Though names had long lost their meaning, he was the last of the Ravenbone lineage, a hunter of monsters whose ancestors swore to protect the world from what lurked beyond the veil. But now, the veil was gone, and the monsters no longer hid. Aidan stood at the edge of a cliff, clutching a sword with a notched blade. His armor, once forged from star metal, was now coated in rust and blood, not always his own. On his shoulder perched a shadow, invisible to the eye, but felt like a cold breath on his neck. It whispered to him, not in words but in sensations, hunger, fear, craving. Aidan had learned to ignore it, but with each passing day, it grew harder. He gazed down at the ruins of the city of Argalan, shrouded in mist. Once the heart of a kingdom where minstrels sang and mages wove spells to hold the world in balance, it was now nothing but a graveyard of shattered towers and bleached bones scattered among the ash. Yet something in those ruins called to Aidan. Not a voice, not a sound, a feeling deeper than instinct, as if the earth itself whispered, "Come, find, save, or destroy." He knew it could be a trap. The shadow that had settled over the world loved to toy with minds. It took the form of lost loved ones, promised power or peace, but always took more than it gave. Yet Aidan had no choice. His kin were dead, his oath broken, and the world around him was dying. If there was even a spark of hope in Argalan, he had to find it. He descended from the cliff, sword at the ready. The fog enveloped him, thick and cold like the breath of a dead god. Each step echoed in the silence, and the shadow on his shoulder whispered louder. It knew something waited ahead, something greater than mere ruins, something that could either destroy Aidan or make him part of the darkness. When he reached the gates of Argalan, he saw they weren't broken but melted, as if the metal had wept under someone's touch. Before the gates, bones lay strewn, hundreds, thousands, arranged in a grotesque spiral. At its center stood a carved stone symbol, an eye encircled by thorns. Aidan felt the shadow on his shoulder tremble, not from fear, but from delight. He stepped through the gate, and the darkness swung. The city of Argalan was dead, but not silent. The air hummed, like a swarm of invisible bees, and every stone seemed to remember the screams of those who had perished. Aidan moved cautiously, his sword raised. His eyes, honed by years of hunting monsters, scanned for movement in the shadows. But these shadows were different. They didn't hide. They watched. Hundreds of unseen eyes followed him from crumbling walls, cracks in the cobblestones, and empty windows gaping like wounds. Argalan's streets were a labyrinth. The buildings, once majestic, now resembled the skeletons of fallen giants. Between them, the wind carried ash and the stench of rot. Aidan noticed traces of magic on the walls, charred runes still flickering with faint blue light. Argalan's magic had been powerful, but even it couldn't withstand the shadow. He paused at a plaza where the Temple of Light once stood. All that remained was its foundation, and the great dome, which had once shone like a second sun, lay shattered like an eggshell. In the center of the plaza stood a statue, or what was left of it. The face of Larina, the goddess who guarded Argalan, had been erased, as if someone had deliberately scraped it away. Where a sacred crystal once glowed on her chest, there was now a hole, and from it oozed a black liquid, pooling on the ground. Aidan felt the shadow on his shoulders stir, as if yearning to touch the liquid. He stepped back. His instinct screamed that this place was cursed, but something pulled him forward. The pool reflected not the sky, but something else, a shimmering, like stars in a bottomless void. Aidan gritted his teeth and looked away. He knew the shadow loved to tempt. It showed you what you wanted to see, then claimed your soul. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a sound. Low, guttural, like a moan. Aiden spun, raising his sword. The sound came from a dark alley to his right. He moved toward it slowly, blade at the ready. The shadow on his shoulder whispered, "Don't go, it's waiting," but Aiden didn't listen. He never backed down from fear, even when fear was the only thing keeping him alive. The alley was narrow, littered with debris. The walls bore claw marks, deep as if carved by a sword. Aiden felt the air grow thicker, as if he were wading through water. The moan came again, closer this time. He stopped, listening. The sound emanated from the depths of the alley, where the darkness seemed alive, pulsing. Then he saw it. A figure stood at the alley's end, tall and emaciated, like a stretched shadow. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered like embers in a fire. It had no face, just a void where eyes should have been, and a wide mouth filled with sharp, writhing teeth. It didn't move, but Aiden felt its gaze pierce him like a needle. The shadow on his shoulder screamed, not in sound, but in a sensation that tore at his chest. He raised his sword, but the creature didn't attack. Instead, it spoke. Its voice was like the grinding of stone. "You've come for answers, Ravenbone," it said, "but answers have a price." Aiden gripped his sword tighter. "Who are you?" His voice was hoarse but steady. A mere echo, a shadow of a shadow. The creature tilted its head, as if studying him. "You seek the heart of Argolon, but are you ready to pay for it?" "The heart?" Aiden frowned. Legend spoke of the heart of Argolon, an artifact that held the world's balance, but no one knew what it truly was. "Where is it?" The creature laughed, and the air trembled with its sound. "Closer than you think, but first you must face a trial. The shadow does not yield its secrets lightly." Aiden felt the shadow on his shoulder stir, as if in agreement. He knew it was a trap, but he also knew that without the heart the world was doomed. He nodded. "What must I do?" The creature raised a hand, and the alley suddenly widened, as if the walls had parted. Before Aiden appeared a door, massive, carved from black stone, etched with the same runes as Argolon's walls. On it was the symbol of an eye encircled by thorns. "Pass through the door of sacrifice," the creature said. "But remember, what you give you will not reclaim." Aiden stared at the door, his heart pounded, but he didn't falter. He never faltered. Approaching the door, he felt the shadow on his shoulder tighten, as if afraid or elated. He pushed the door open, and the darkness swallowed him again.